Welcome to the Personality Couch podcast, where we discuss all things personality and clinical practice. I'm your host, Doc Bach, and I'm here with my co-host, Doc Fish. We are both licensed clinical psychologists in private practice, and today is our second episode in our series on narcissism. Specifically, we'll be diving in to what pathological narcissism is and 5 signs you can be on the lookout for, along with 3 bonus invisible signs that you don't want to miss. So let's get right to it.
All right. So first, narcissism itself isn't actually bad.
Right.
There's healthy narcissism. Healthy narcissism is part of development, especially when we're really little, but it can morph into unhealthy territory. And that's where we come to pathological narcissism. For today, we're going to sit in that unhealthy or pathological narcissism box.
Yes. Narcissism, or the term narcissist, is not synonymous with narcissistic personality disorder. High levels of narcissism can be found in all personality disorders. It's the first thing that goes into the personality soup.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a categorical diagnosis, and we'll hit on that more in a different episode.
That's right.
But Doc Bach, what is pathological narcissism? What's it look like?
Yes, great question. So first, we have to look at pathological narcissism as it relates to the self. So those with pathological narcissism have a distorted sense of who they are and have difficulty regulating their self-identity, leading to a constant need for seeking that support and validation from others.
Okay, so it's normal to want to see yourself positively, to seek out experiences that make you feel good about yourself.
Absolutely.
But those with pathological narcissism, they're going to take that to the extreme.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And with that, there's also a sensitivity to the everyday stressors and life's ups and downs that kind of challenge this already rocky self-view. So they can't regulate in the face of stress.
Right. They can't handle their badness, their imperfections, and so they respond to even normal stressors in life in a way that's over the top and often at the expense of others.
Yeah, and normal stressors can be something like aging, lack of success, not getting their way, significant losses, like whether it be job related, financial, or relationship related, and that's just a few. But they react to these stressors by either putting others down to keep themselves feeling up for their imperfections, or by fueling their shifting self-image with praise and narcissistic supply from outside themselves, right? Anything that makes the self feel better.
Okay, so it's kind of like they need cookies of the ego variety. And if they get them, they're good. But if they don't, then they become hangry and act out to obtain more cookies.
Yeah, that's right. So an example might be, let's say a pathological narcissist comes home and their expectation is that there's a hot meal the minute that they walk through the door. Let's say the partner is maybe 10 minutes late to getting that dinner on the table. So that ego cookie that was expected is missing for like a whole 10 minutes.
Oh no.
And there will be a tantrum, just like a baby.
It's primitive and childlike to need constant regulation in this way.
Yes.
So wanting to be soothed when hurt is normal, but as adults, we're supposed to be able to have the ability to self-soothe or self-regulate. And so if this is lacking, it's developmentally inappropriate and can come out in a lot of ways. Sometimes, though, it can hide in plain sight, especially when there's enough external reinforcement or narcissistic supply to feed the ego.
So that's where it can hide. But like we said, pathological narcissism is found in all of the personality disorders. So there can be many different ways that these present. So, Doc Fish, do you want to kick us off with the first sign of pathological narcissism?
Absolutely. The first sign of pathological narcissism is pride and self-righteousness. So someone with pathological narcissism will not admit their own shortcomings because of the core belief that there's nothing wrong with me. Like maybe there's something wrong with you, not me.
Right. So they're rejecting their own badness. So the core belief becomes one of pride, or I'm better than you. And then pride can also come out as exaggerated self-esteem.
Look at my achievements. Aren't I so great? I'm the smartest, the fittest. I have the best house, the best career. It can also be more childlike, though, as in, oh, I'm the specialist because people take care of me and love me.
Right. And this is where it goes beyond just kind of the classic narcissist or classic narcissistic personality disorder that we think of. This is more of a dependent flavor, but it's still narcissistic, right? If the thought is, my job is to be completely dependent on you to meet my needs. I can't do it on my own. And I'm so special that you'll keep doing what I need you to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, ugh, that's still pride.
I was even thinking a masochistic flavor might be like, my pain is so special. Like, pay attention to my special pain because no one understands me in my pain.
Right, right. And sometimes these things aren't like overtly said, but if you look at the like transaction of that social interaction, that's basically what's happening. Or it sometimes is like an underlying thought as well.
Yeah.
But with the masochistic flavor that you mentioned, it actually reminded me of borderline personality. So sometimes these individuals will demonstrate pathological narcissism in this way, in this like masochistic pride, where it's, I'm more special than you because my pain is so special, or I'm so special that you'll break boundaries or norms for me. You'll rescue me.
That makes sense. Conversely, though, pride can also look like defensive self-sufficiency.
Ooh.
So, like, I don't need anybody. I do things by myself. I built this empire by myself. No one else gets the credit.
Or it could also look like I can carry this weight or burden on my own. Right. Which then leads to the specialness and being the hero. Like, look how much I put up with or how I survived. But then pathological narcissists can also flip this by saying, well, nobody will help me. Right. So that's like the victim switch that happens sometimes where it's like, look how great I am to woe is me when threatened. Yeah. Sometimes even in the same breath. That can happen. But it's also like you pushed everyone away and you wanted to do it by yourself, but now you're playing different cards.
Right. So maybe an example might be a boss who's building a business like by themselves, but really there's a lot of people helping. They're just discredited. And the boss might say, look at what I had to sacrifice and go through to make it by myself.
Right. Yeah. A little less shiny, but still prideful. But then pride can also come out as self-righteousness. So self-righteousness could be like, I've got it all figured out. Look at me as the exemplar of all things good, or of a good parent, the perfect Christian family, like the notion that I'm doing all of these great, good things.
Or going darker, maybe that person had it coming. I murdered them for the good of the world. Which is a vigilante flavor of narcissism, but it's still self-righteous. Like, I'm the exemplar. I did this for you because I'm so special.
Yes.
Maybe another example would be a racist social activist who is the head of a diversity committee, but participates in human trafficking.
So sometimes this pride or self-righteousness is what we call a reaction formation against their own darkness, or basically doing the equal and opposite of their dark desires or behavior to look amazing and get praise.
Yeah. So another example might be a critical mother who's a teacher and she gives all of her patience to her students in the classroom, but then at home, she's hypercritical of her own children.
Oh no. And then likely in that is breeding little narcissists in the process if there's cold, harsh punishment, and lack of warmth.
Could
Oof.
be. Yeah, but she's a hero in the classroom and she rescues the children like a look at me.
Oof. Yeah. And if someone calls this mom out, though, she's apt to tap into a more vulnerable facade and break down.
So like you don't appreciate everything that I do for you. I'm just a lowly mother. If I had all the opportunities that you had, I could have been more than a teacher.
Yeah. Yep. So she can't look at the imperfection. So she switches to the victim and projects it onto you. Right? That is a common transaction that happens. There's a switch that flips. But all of this is still self-righteous. It's just maybe different feathers of the same peacock, should I say?
Sure. Yeah. Well, speaking of different feathers, we have the second sign of pathological narcissism, which is superiority, and then its inverse, inferiority.
Ooh.
Now, sometimes these come out as specialness and entitlement, often due to envy.
Right. Okay. So inferiority comes into play because superiority can actually be a rejection of the feeling of inferiority. So that's one possibility. But then it can also be kind of the vulnerable side of the coin to assume that victim role and then gain external validation, admiration, care. There's a few different places that can come from.
So an example of superiority might be like, I'm above all of you and I should be employee of the month. Where an example of inferiority might be, I can't believe I didn't get employee of the month. I'm the best at the job and Bob slept his way to the top. That's why he got employee of the month and I didn't.
Okay, so Bob slipped his way to the top. Lots of thoughts about Bob, but that's interesting. That's like two sides of the same coin. It's a switch. All pathological narcissists are capable of this switch from superiority to inferiority, right? I deserve this, and then I didn't get it, but they can switch back and forth from one to another. And sometimes that's called like a victim switching.
I also had a thought, we might see this in politics, and I'm not sure there's really an explanation needed for that, but I'll just say maybe, possibly, there might be a game of like, whose male anatomy is bigger?
That's accurate.
Maybe.
Oh my goodness. I also thought of like more of an antisocial flavor of superiority. So antisocial meaning going against social norms, but like I'm above the law. The rules don't apply to me. So I don't need to pay child support. I don't need to pick up the kids on time when it's my weekend. I don't even have to see the children on my weekend even. I have more important things to do. Right? Or then when called on the carpet, the inferiority card might come out where it's, you don't understand me. You should reassure me. I've sacrificed so much as a father and yada, yada, yada.
So unsurprisingly, superiority goes hand in hand with specialness and entitlement. So of course I should get my dinner comped since I showed up and you were understaffed and unprepared. And then when you don't get your way, you might write like the nasty review and claim you're the victim and you're never coming back.
Never coming back here again. Right. Or another example that I thought of, like a student. Like, so what if I didn't complete my homework assignments all semester? Like, don't you know who I am? I deserve an A. You want to keep your job, right? My dad is on the board.
Oh, a different example. So like, but my girlfriend broke up with me and my mom got married and I've been crying so much and my gerbil died. And how can you even think of not giving me an A? I've been suffering so much. My pain is so special.
Oh dear. Yep. That's the victim switching again, right?
Yeah.
Where you see that inferiority come into play. But there's also an air of entitlement, right? I deserve this because of who I am.
Darker example, which it does happen, is like, I plan to go out in a blaze of glory after this mass murder because mine was the best idea with the worst carnage. I deserve to be on the front page of Google or the paper. Like I deserve the attention and the fame.
Yeah, that does happen. Wow. But then I also think about that specialness and entitlement are a product of some major envy. So that's where a lot of this behavior is stemming from. Out of that envy, maybe the pathological narcissist either associates with or rubs shoulders with people who possess qualities that they want or they think will take them where they need to be, right? So I think of Freud as a classic example of this.
Oh, Freud.
Rubbing shoulders, right? With the somebodies because the world had not yet recognized his greatness.
That's a good one. Sometimes, though, narcissists can tear down others for the qualities that they wish they had, which is kind of a reaction to shame, which we'll get to in a minute. But other times, too, there's an obsession about wanting XYZ. Want a better house, clothes, car, life, job. And then in that obsession, there's a fixated pursuit of those things. Like I'm obsessively going after these better clothes, better car, better life.
Right, exactly. And then I thought of two things actually. So one is like copycat murders, right? I can do better, more bodies, more headlines. So this is more of like antisocial, maybe paranoid personality flavors, but still incredibly narcissistic. But then I also just think of like, sometimes I've seen someone with pathological narcissism like fawn over someone else that they want to be like, where it's kind of gross, where it's like, okay, calm it down, like really turning up the charm because they want something that this other person has.
That almost makes me think of like the people who get plastic surgery to look like somebody else.
There's a lot of different ways that can present.
Sure. Whew. Well, let's go on. We have another one. So the third sign of pathological narcissism, vanity, conceit, and inauthenticity.
Ooh, yeah, it's a big one.
It can come out as snobbery. So like, I won't even talk to that person over there because they're fill in the blank, disabled, LGBTQ plus, overweight, not white, not rich enough, right? Et cetera, et cetera. It's I'm better and I'm not going to associate with them.
Yeah, it's us versus them. Exactly. And then I think of like the inauthenticity of spending, I don't know, $5,000 on the Botox and the falsies and the nails and the injections and the Ozempic and the liposuction and yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, being $100,000 in debt, right? Or spending, I don't know, $100,000 on the car that you secretly live out of.
Ooh. There's also people who are like, oh, look how great I am for helping all of these people at like a charity ball. I donated my time and goods, and I can't stop bragging about it to everyone I meet. Yeah. So all those good deeds are just cloaked for self-gain. It's well disguised, but it's just as narcissistic.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one because it looks like they're being so helpful. And I mean, technically, maybe they are. But if you kind of pull back that curtain, it's like, that's actually for you and for your ego. And then I also think of like schmoozing everyone you meet in public. Like that's maybe where some of that fawning comes in. Oh, you're so wonderful and blah, blah, blah. While privately berating your girlfriend or boyfriend, right? Where maybe you might go home and say like, don't you know how hard my life is? You don't appreciate me. I hate you. Love me better since I'm amazing. When, I mean, in the same day, they were kissing someone's hiney out in public, trying to schmooze to get ahead, get a deal. I don't know.
Maybe even charming police that show up to the scene of a crime, like your crime.
Ooh.
Or even after maybe a domestic dispute, right? Like convincing the police that it was self-defense, even though it was cold-blooded murder.
Oh, dear.
Those kind of, the charm. It's the charm.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's been many different well-covered news stories about that type of thing. Yikes. Well, then we have contempt and anger. So that's sign number 4. And this is really a rejection of shame. So it's a shame shield. And it can range from like extreme rage and abuse even to like on the more mild end, like passive aggressiveness or maybe avoidance of people, places, things that elicit feelings of shame. So it's a spectrum.
So maybe more extreme examples, maybe that uncontrollable, intense, sudden rage. So flying off the handle when the house isn't clean to your liking, and like throwing and smashing things. Aggressiveness when challenged, like domestic violence, police brutality.
Yeah, those are more on the extreme anger examples. And then on the passive aggressive side of things, like withdrawing in any form, avoidance, possibly even cutting off the relationship. So that's a counter move to get away from the shame. Perhaps the other person saw you for who you are, which is a fraud, which means, cut it off.
So especially common in a cult-like setting is the threat of punishment. Maybe getting cut off from the group if you start thinking on your own or you see the imperfections.
Yeah.
It can also happen in narcissistic family structures. So they might punish for not obeying the rules or engage in purposeful silent treatment for punishment, like for days on end.
Yeah.
They might cut off positive things like affirmation, gifts, love, secret group knowledge, those things.
Right. That's where narcissistic family structures and cults have a lot in common, actually, where there's this kind of secret code of control where you'll lose secret group knowledge, love, whatever the special things are in the group, if you start to call things out for what they are, or you start questioning things or thinking on your own. There's like a cult-like mentality that can happen.
Oh, absolutely.
And with anger and rage and all of that, sometimes you actually may not even see it. It might be like a silent fuming, like a simmering anger. Maybe, I don't know, like how much you hate your boss, right? You hate that your boss makes more money than you. And then your invisible experience of pure shame, anger turned inward, depression, even. So these individuals might even start spiraling, which increases suicide risk.
It does. Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting because that's not super shiny. Like some of the other, like the superiority and all the kind of the peacocking. And there's a darker side to this that's underneath the surface that is not always easily seen.
Right. The underbelly. Well, let's move on to our fifth sign. Can you tell me about decreased empathy and callousness?
Yes. Okay. Again, under the surface, there's this thought that, well, your emotions don't matter, just mine. Thank you. Next. Okay. So an example, maybe like after a natural disaster, boasting like, well, those people had it coming. They should be more like me. Like really a loss of compassion when name a natural disaster that we've had in the past several years, not having empathy for those people at all.
I was thinking even like a smaller example of like, what do you mean you're offended? I think your shirt's horrid. Like they just don't get it.
They don't get it.
Like, I think your shirt's horrid. Why would you think differently? Why is that offensive?
And I'm the exemplar of fashion, so you should listen to me.
Obviously, wear my shirt. Like, yeah.
It's so true.
Goodness. Or selective empathy can happen sometimes. So when it benefits the ego, so I'll be sympathetic over here because it makes me look good. But I don't have any sympathy for those whose loved ones are in hospice.
Ooh, right. But it benefits the ego to like express empathy over here.
I don't care if your grandfather died. The assignment was due today. Get it done maybe on the way to the funeral if you have to.
Ooh.
I know. There's just like an emotional coldness or flatness towards you as a human. So it may even make you wonder, like, is there a pulse under there?
Right.
Does this person have a heart?
Yeah, because it's about them. Everything's about them. And if you're not serving their needs, their ego, they don't have a use for you and your emotions. It's just weakness.
Yes.
This also made me think of another example, probably more in the like superiority, inferiority camp, but maybe this would fall into multiple different signs that we talked about already. But I remember I had a narcissistic boss at one point, and I remember I was at a conference or a speaking engagement or something, and when they were up there answering a question about I think it was like an underserved population or maybe a marginalized population. And I didn't think that they knew the answer to the question. And sure enough, instead of like saying that they didn't know the answer, they just started bawling, like weeping. And
oh my goodness.
there was this like some effusive fake empathy for this marginalized group. And it was like, what just happened? What is this side of this person? So I think maybe that's a vulnerable side, maybe like a victim switching moment because they didn't know the answer.
Oh, that's yucky. That's yucky.
That popped into my head while we were going through some of these other examples. So I'm sure that we could think of many.
Narcissism is all around us.
So we went through 5 signs. There's also 3 bonus pathological signs.
Oh, tell me more.
Know. So these are more internal. These sometimes can be harder to see. So I think it's important to note that not all pathological narcissists are shiny or extroverted or heck, even charming. Like not all narcissists are even good with people. There's an underbelly to narcissism that certain types of people show probably more than others, but all pathological narcissists have these pieces. You just may not see them.
Right, because they're internal. So the first one, emptiness or incompleteness.
Ooh.
You might question, does this person actually stand for anything? Who are they?
Sometimes you can see more other mental health symptoms come up instead. And you might ask, like, is this person depressed? Are they okay? Like, they don't seem to think highly of themselves sometimes. But then on the other hand, you've seen them act like they're God's gift to humankind.
I know what you're talking about there. Well, there might also be like a flight of interest and pursuits in attempt to fill that void, that emptiness. I'm really interested in this fad thing. It's hot. Everybody has it. But now over here, I'm interested in this type of thing because this new shiny friend has it. Kind of like dopamine hopping.
That makes sense. Yep. Then also perhaps when the pathological narcissist needs aren't met by you, then they lash out, right? So that's sometimes when you can get a glimpse of that empty spot in the ugly behavior, like the tantrums, the irrationality, the woe is me, just the icky behavior that you're like, what is under there? Like,
yeah, like what is this? Now, because of that emptiness, suicide and parasuicidal behaviors are actually highly correlated with narcissism.
As a result of the emptiness, for sure. And then this also kind of goes hand in hand with the second one, and that's helplessness. So at the core, behind all the fluff, do you actually see how dependent this person is on other people to substantiate their existence? Like, that's sad. That's really sad.
Nancy McWilliams, I love her quote. She said, "Their need for others is deep, but their love for them is shallow."
Oh, that's amazing. That's a perfect description of what we're talking about here. Yep. I'm also just thinking how they can quickly like assume this victim role. We talked about that a little bit, and it's to elicit care and concern from others. So sometimes you can see them play the perpetrator role and the victim role really in the same breath. And I think we gave some examples in the inferiority and superiority part where we talked about that, but I think it can show up really in any of the signs that we mentioned today.
You know what? If they also don't have any options left to protect their ego, they can transfer this pain onto the masses.
Yes. Ooh.
So this might be like, I'm going to murder as many people as I can. I'm going to take out others with me. So that's often the case in school shootings.
That is sad. That is so sad. And if it's not murder, it's sometimes suicide. And unfortunately, suicide is more common in pathological narcissism. And interestingly, narcissistic personality disorder, which is different than pathological narcissism, but it has pathological narcissism in it as a core component. But with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder specifically, this condition has the most lethal suicide risk, even in the absence of depression. Yeah, that's the empty spot, like the emptiness, the helplessness behind all the charades and the facades. Like there's a really icky underbelly here.
Sometimes I've seen this with age too.
Yes.
Like we can't handle aging, so we're going to take control and just stop it. We're just going to stop. It's not necessarily depression, but it's that emptiness. There's nothing if I don't have this.
Right. Oh, yikes. Like there's nothing if I don't have this literal image, this face, this body, whatever that represents. Ooh, yikes.
That's sad.
It's very sad.
Paired with this, we have our third one here is low self-esteem. So they're easily triggered, easily offended, hypersensitive to criticism, because deep down they don't view themselves highly at all. They're shameful.
Right. So any negative self-talk is then projected onto other people. Like, you're the worst thing to ever happen to me. Or sometimes this is just like coming out as a real negative Nancy. Like nothing's ever good enough. Like, well, this restaurant had 4.5 stars. I wanted 4.6 or higher. Like petty, just petty and very bitter towards everyone else. Kind of the chronic complainer. But that's covering this low self-esteem.
Right. Nothing satisfies except image-based talk and affirmations. They need that ego support from outside themselves.
Right. So these three kind of internal signs, you may see them, you may not, but it's kind of two sides of the same coin. They're under there. Just I think some types maybe express the underbelly more overtly than other types, but it's all part of the same. I guess I like to think of it as a narcissistic spinal column. Like it's all part of the same thing. We learned a lot today about the unhealthy part of narcissism, and specifically the signs and symptoms of pathological narcissism include pride, superiority / entitlement, which stems from envy, vanity, and inauthenticity, anger stemming from shame, and then decreased empathy. So the three invisible signs of pathological narcissism are emptiness, helplessness, and low self-esteem. And as we say, this isn't just narcissistic personality disorder. All problematic personalities will have a whiff of pathological narcissism as the first ingredient. It's complicated, which is why we're doing this whole series on narcissism. But for today, it's time to wrap up. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of The Personality Couch. Make sure to check out our blogs that coincide with these episodes at www.personalitycouch.com. And as always, don't forget to give us a thumbs up or rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. And on YouTube, hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode in our narcissism series. Be well, be kind, and we'll see you next time on The Personality Couch. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute a professional relationship. If you're in need of professional help, please seek out appropriate resources in your area. Information about clinical trends or diagnoses are discussed in broad and universal terms and do not refer to any specific person or case.